Now, I've talked to companies and also an APD provider enrollment specialist about why people or companies are turned down from being able to become a provider for APD. And I was told by one APD provider enrollment specialist that by law, APD does not have to say why they are denying them to be a APD provider. So why wouldn't APD not, provide information as to why someone is denied from being an APD provider and what can be done to change this? So, a person has a chance to maybe fix a situation, perhaps apply once more to APD.
Well, I think that's a good question. And I was actually speaking to my staff earlier today about this issue. One of the priorities of Governor Christ in this administration is to bring about a great deal more transparency so that people know what their government is doing and why we're doing what we do. To that end, I have really encouraged our people to move away from taking action without cause. In other words, a provider termination. If a provider termination is necessary, I want the area office to have documented why and be able and to do these terminations with cause. Perhaps the without cause would then be a precursor to a more formal action, but I do believe that it's important that providers have an opportunity to defend themselves against formal charges. In our system, it's the consumer who chooses who the good ones and the bad ones are. Our job is simply to make sure that providers do not endanger health and safety and that they follow the law. And those are really the instances where we would actually take action, and those are the kinds of instances that you can document. Now, similarly with the application process, I've asked that we, because we are enrolling and we enroll anyone who meets the qualifications. Okay, again, we don't enroll the ones we personally like. We enroll anyone who meets these qualifications. So that if we say no, it should be because they have failed to meet some very straightforward, cut and dried qualifications. And you're right, it's something that the provider might correct. Most often, they're issues dealing with background screening, is what I'm told. But I've asked to go back. That is actually an internal operating procedure. It is not the law. That's just a mistake. It is not a function of the law. It's an APD operating procedure. That operating procedure just happens to be up for some revision, and one revision that I have asked our staff to basically to incorporate, unless our legal department tells us there's a reason not to, but otherwise I plan to make sure that we are notifying providers of specifically where they fell short in the qualification process. I believe that's an issue that I want to correct.
Good. And, also sometimes, I get phone calls from people that are trying to be a provider, and, I try and help them to, which office they need to contact, the person they would need to talk to. And, I'll get a phone call back once in a while, and they'll say, well, so-and-so said that, they don't need a provider for that right now. So they're not letting me apply to be a provider. In my opinion, wouldn't you really say you'd want 100 different providers for a certain thing, because not every one of them is going to be a good one. But, maybe the person that they said all of a sudden, well, you can't apply because we don't need somebody for that. Maybe that particular individual would have been the best person that ever did that job, ever. But yet they didn't get an opportunity. So, just another thing there that I believe that, anybody should be able to be a provider, regardless if, there's not enough consumers for that particular thing at that particular moment. Let them be known that, tell them that it may be a little rough to get a couple of cases in the beginning, but again, they could be the best person that ever did that job. You never know.
Right. And I agree with you. I mean, our system is set up to where the consumers decide who the good providers are, who the bad providers. If too many providers enroll, then hopefully the consumers choose the ones who are going to be successful because they're the ones that deliver.
Exactly. And, if a consumer has a provider and they're not doing the job, the consumer's going to switch anyway.
Right.
So it does, eventually it does weed out the people that aren't doing the job correctly.
That's correct.